Hello and welcome to another art store tour. Today I'm visiting Arthouse Direct, which actually has 6 stores in Australia, 4 in Victoria and 2 in New South Wales. The store I'm visiting today is in Melbourne City, the suburb of Richmond, and they reached out to me to ask if I'd like to come and do a tour of their store, so here I am. Let's go inside and check it out. I was here just before Valentine's Day, which is why they had that display in the window. They have an online store as well, so I'll be linking that in the description below. Let's open the door and wander in. Because of its central city location, it's not the largest art shop that I've been to in Melbourne, and I think their biggest store is in Bendigo, but it is still quite big, and they've absolutely packed it full of stuff, so it did take me quite a while to get around the entire store. I will wander around all of the aisles, but I do like to start with a general look at the whole shop when I first walk in. So let's take a look in more detail, and first up are these really adorable tote bags with cute cat and dog artist names on them. I love those so much, and I would totally walk around with one of those. So I'm moving over to the front left-hand side of the store, and over here is where they have all of their crafting supplies and art supplies that are more aimed for children, like that clag paste is in every single school. I think the American version is the Elmer's school glue. They also have quite a large supply of wrapping paper and things like ribbon, which we can see back here, and apologies for the bad lighting here, it's because of that really bright window. There are gift cards and tags so that you can make up arty kinds of presents, which I actually really like. It's a bit more interesting than the standard Hallmark card. But as I wander around this first aisle, it's definitely an area that's aimed at hobbyists and children too. But I like looking in these areas because there are quite often things that I've never seen before, and also you find cheaper art supplies, which is really great if you just want something to play around with and not spend loads of money on. They have lots of little craft kits as well, so there's plenty of stuff for the whole family here, which is kind of nice. I like that. And then more supplies like the ones here, envelopes, twine, cardstock, all of the things you might want to make your own cards with and send to people, even letters. But now I'm starting to get more into the art section of the store. And Arthouse Direct is one of the few places I know that actually stocks Marabou. I'm pretty sure it's a German company, but I haven't seen a great deal by Marabou in Australia. There are some other brands here as well, and this looks to be the tie-dyeing section of the store. I've never tried tie-dyeing anything before, I bet it's messy. There are also things like resin. I'm not sure what those Marabou Easy Marble paints are, I've never seen those before. There's some silk paints down here, and stencils, other bits and pieces. And on their website there is quite an extensive section of crafting supplies. Around the end of this shelving unit are some stationery supplies, staplers, paper clips, all those things that you can't live without. Well, I can't. And now I'm going to look at this intriguing shelving unit over here. I'm always drawn into the paper sections, and this is a display of Magnani 1404 Etrusca stationery. I've never seen this particular paper before. There are different kinds of cardstocks and envelopes. I think these are actually meant to be for things like wedding invitations, so it's luxury paper for special handwritten letters and cards. And wedding invitations. So right where I'm at now is the pay counter to the right hand side, and I'll walk up this section before I go back down to the front of the store. There were rolls of wrapping paper, and now we get to the glass cabinet where specialty items are usually kept. And this is where they keep all of their range of chameleon products, including the pencils along with all of the different pen sets. There are also some clearance items, and behind the counter is a wall of markers, including the Copics up the top, also Marabou and stationery items like scissors. Back on the counter are all of these Herbin inks, or is it Harbin? I'm not too sure. And in this back corner is another pen display with things like jelly rolls by Sakura, brush markers and paint markers I think down the bottom. Maybe also some other alcohol markers as well. I think this is one of the largest ranges of Sakura jelly rolls I've ever seen. I didn't know they came in as many colours, and these are all the Posca paint pens down here. Looks like there's some fine liners too. And this is often a section I will go to because I'm always running out of pens. I've never used the Sakura Koi brush markers either. Here's another stand of Sakura over here. These are all of their fine liners, which I use a lot, and they're really great. You can never have too many pens, that's what I think anyway. But the Pigma Microns are really good ones to use. Here's a shelf of paint palettes and other accessories. And above it are some of their paintbrush displays. Those graduate ones are by Dale Rowney. I'm not entirely sure of the brushes in the middle, which brand they're by, because I totally forgot to look, didn't I? But I'm pretty sure the ones over here are Sino Art brand. I really hope I'm pronouncing those brand names correctly. Here's a really awkward one, Coom. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. I did not know that they made brushes. I thought they only made sharpeners and things like that. There are also some painting palette knives by Dale Rowney there. And some more products here by Coom, including these brushes on the end. And then to the right is another display of brushes called Grey Matters by Jack Richardson and Co. They're located in the USA. The brushes are grey, so it's easier to see colours and values, and also creates less distraction by not being white or bright. At least according to the information there. And there's also a Grey Matters paper palette, which is in grey, which gives a mid-tone value, making it theoretically easier to see lights and darks. At least that's what I'm guessing. I haven't used a grey palette before like that. But here are all of their other palettes that they have, and now I'm going to wander back to the front of the store. First up, taking in these graphic marker pens by Sakura Koi, and more Pigma Microns that are actually in sets rather than single pens. So it's good to start off with a set of different sized fine liners and then just buy the singles as you need them. Over on the next shelving unit are some Kuretake paints. And yes, I do own all of those boxes, but here's a set that I'm unfamiliar with. Shami Watercolour Sketcher Set. I've never seen that before. I love finding new products. And up here are some more watercolour sets by Kohinoor and also Sino Art. I've never used any of their products, I don't think, and let me just put that one up right so we can see what it is. A little watercolour pocket set. Oh, those are always so tempting. I so don't need more, but I just love using them. And then up the top are the more familiar Koi watercolours by Sakura. I've also never owned a set of these, although I am quite tempted. Next over here are some more Herbin inks. These ones are watercolour inks. I'd be curious to try those out. I love the bottles, they're so cute. Underneath are some Herbin fountain pens, and then some wax seals with the stamp, and a wooden box of speedball nibs for ink pens. But I've wandered off to the next shelving unit. Calligraphy pens, dip pens, and Marabou alcohol inks. Up the top it looks like there are a few other brands of alcohol inks, like the Jacquard Pinatas, and some bottles of isopropyl alcohol. So they have quite a nice range of different alcohol inks there. More dip pens and quite a lot of other ink brands as well. So this is definitely the lettering and calligraphy section of the store. I'm always so tempted by bottled inks. They just look so beautiful on their displays. And here are some more Speedball products at the bottom of this shelf, which would go with those Speedball nibs that I saw earlier. I seem to have missed part of a shelf there, which is really annoying. I was so distracted by the stickers on the end here, I just can't help myself. I love stickers so much. But I'm just moving around to the front of the store, and I've got another bright window here, so I hope it doesn't cause too much lighting issue. They have a pretty display of various art supplies and easels in the front window, and a large Sino Art acrylic painting box there. On this shelving unit here are a bunch of miscellaneous items and things that are on sale. You could probably see those clearance stickers there. And there certainly is a mishmash of products in this store, which I always really like because I enjoy browsing stores thoroughly. More essentials like adhesives and masking tapes. All of the products that are just so useful to have in a studio. Now I'm going to wander back down this aisle and then go up the stairs. Because this shop is quite small, the aisles were very close together and it was a little bit difficult to film some areas just because it was quite a squish. But here is a large display of acrylic paints, Australian company Chroma with the Chromacryl paints, Jo Sonja's Artist Colours, and I think Jo Sonja is actually based in the United States. Though for some reason I thought she was Australian. I guess it's because these paints are really easy to get here. Global Acrylic Paints is an unfamiliar one to me, and then moving along a little bit more more Australian Chromacryl products, and then going up into Atelier, which is also another brand found commonly in Australia. They may even be Australian, I'm not too sure on that one. These next ones are definitely Aussie, the Deravan Matisse display, and then good old Art Spectrum, which is most definitely Australian, and they manufacture their products in Melbourne, so it's a really local one. There are some more Speedball products on the end of the shelving unit, and then there's a large display of Art Spectrum artist mediums, turpentine, spray adhesives, fixatives, pretty much everything you could possibly want in that brand. This part was very squishy to walk down. Here are all of the Deravan Matisse mediums and paints up the top there. I have a feeling they might be also a Melbourne manufacturer. And then the display of Art Spectrum paints next to it. They make watercolours, gouache and oil paints. I've used their products before and they're very good. They're also easy to find and are quite reasonably priced in Australia. There are also some pots of brush cleaner down the bottom. I have some of that and it works really well. I like to clean my oil painting brushes with it. It's so satisfying looking at all of those tubes in different sizes, watercolours on the right and oils to the left. Now we're moving to a Belgian company named Blockex or Blocks. This is their watercolour range. I've never used these before, so I really don't know what they're like, but I think they're meant to be professional paints. They look professional. Maybe one day I'll have to try some of these for myself. And underneath this display is another unfamiliar one. I've heard of Shinhan, but not a hybrid watercolour. Apparently it is a cross between a watercolour and a gouache. There's a whole box set here. I wonder what those are like to use. Let me know if you've ever heard of them. Directly opposite is this little shelf of rulers and templates and other picture hanging items. And then I needed to move myself to a better location, which you can see here. To the right is the display of De La Rowney paints, and to the left are more of those Richardson paints, which I've never seen before. I think we'll come back to those in a moment. But I was just generally panning around the shelving area here. Once again, quite a few items that I'd never seen before, such as Marabou acrylic paints, and then this orange box of gouache at the back. I have no idea who that's by. There's a closer look. These are all unfamiliar to me. And on the left there is a box of Marabou watercolours and oil paints too. I didn't know they did those. Here is a closer look at that display of Richardson oil paints. Let me know in the comments if you've ever used these. They look really beautiful and I'd love to know if they're any good. I think they are professional quality. And next to them is a range of oil paint sticks by them, or oil sticks. I've always been intrigued to use those. I've never have, and I'd love to get some in my collection one day. On the wall next to them are some budget-friendly brush sets and other art accessories like colour wheels, droppers, and some little sea sponges there too. So that's the lower part of the store, and now I'll go up to the other section of it, which is up this tiny little flight of stairs. And just before I do that, here's a large display of pastels by Jack Richardson as well. So this is definitely a brand that Arthouse Direct specialises in carrying. Alright, now I have to gingerly go up these stairs and not trip over while I'm holding the camera. And up here are a lot of papers and other surfaces, so I'll get around all of this too. Starting with some large paper rolls in a basket. And I think I got distracted by that clearance sign with more Richardson hard pastels. I don't think I'd actually spun that carousel, but those are on the back end of it. And now let's go and look at the paper. Over here is this wonderful display of Magnani, I hope that's how it's pronounced, paper pads. And there are all sorts of different varieties here. I've never used these before. I have one sheet of this paper in my stash, which I bought a while ago from another store, but I haven't actually gotten to try it or any of these paper pads, so I would like to. They look really beautiful, and the cover images are really appealing. I'm presuming they are Italian. But there's a variety of hot press and cold press paper here, 300 GSM, so good watercolour paper. And now I'll move around to this tiny room where they keep the bulk of their large sheets of paper. And just before I go in, there's a stack of Awagami Japanese papers in different colours. This is another brand that I haven't tried either, but I really like the look of some of these papers. They're really beautiful. And now I'll wander into this tiny room, also quite difficult to film just because of the lack of space, but there are loads of different papers here, starting off with Pastel Matte by Clairefontaine, which has a nice smooth velvety surface and doesn't seem to be as rough as other pastel mattes that I've tried. Small sheets and large ones too. But as we'll see as we walk around, they do have quite a lot of papers by Clairefontaine. I like to buy large sheets of paper like this because it's a really great way to try out different papers and to not have to spend as much buying an entire pad of it. And they carry a pretty wide range of brands. Here are more around here, the usual Fabriano and Stonehenge, Stillman and Byrne, and quite a few different specialty papers. I really like Fabriano paper and I use it a lot in my studio. And I did buy a pack of 10 from Arthouse Direct a couple of years ago when they had a sale on. I'm still working my way through it. But the manager was so nice, he actually gave me a whole bunch of paper samples to try out, and I'll probably show those in another video because it's actually quite a lot of them. But here's a little storage nook under the stairs, and I'll walk out of this room. It is such a cute little place to keep paper. So I'll move out here and turn to the left. This is where all of the other pads of paper are kept and some more sheets of paper on the racks just here. Once again, there are quite a lot of different brands out here, and you'll see these ones up the top, Be Creative. I'm pretty sure this is Arthouse Direct's store brand, if that makes sense, and I have a pad of it. I could not think where it had come from, but now I know it was from Arthouse Direct. I have been to the store a few times over the years, but not very often because it isn't that close to where I live. Quite a lot of different Clairefontaine pads there, and then some coloured card and sparkly papers up the top, which are by Canson. Next to this display are more pads by Be Creative and, of course, Arches paper or Arche. There's always got to be some of that in an art shop. So I have one of these 100% cotton watercolour pads in my stash. I think it's only an A5 size though. Quite a few different brands of watercolour papers there. Some, like this Arto brand, is quite unfamiliar to me. Then we've got Yupo paper, Bamboo, and a bunch of other papers by Clairefontaine there. I always find paper so hard to resist. I have a lot of it in my studio and I'm probably never going to end up using all of it, but I do try my best. Though it's always tempting to buy more when they're just beautifully laid out in front of me like this. Actually, now I remember I do have one of those Arto watercolour painting pads that came in a set of paints. I need to find it and use it again. Opposite on this other shelf are smaller pads of paper, spiral-bound visual diaries, and all sorts of other little pads and sketchbooks. There are quite a lot of Clairefontaine products that I hadn't seen before, including all of these paint-on papers in different tones and some black paper as well. I find toned paper very hard to resist too. All of these Zap books and graphic books that I've never seen before. So yes, lots of interesting stuff there. More kinds of paper than one could ever possibly use, but that doesn't stop me from trying. A few Stillman and Byrne books there, and then some more Clairefontaine pads in black and craft paper. I want them all! Okay, I'll move down to the very back of the shop, and here are the largest pieces of paper in the store, mount boards. They're really massive. And then next to that are some more Awagami papers. These are editioning papers. I have seen at one of these stands before in another store, but they're not that common in Melbourne that I've ever found. Up the back is more paper storage, and then I'm presuming the staff area, which I did not go through, and pieces of wood, along with some large canvases. We'll see more canvases when I turn around shortly, but I was just having a quick look here. Some of these items I think were clearance, and there's more Clairefontaine paper over here. I've never seen this Carnet de Voyage travel album, but I do have one of these Herbier pads of paper in my studio, and I really need to use it. But turning back around, and this is where all of the canvases are stored, along with large pieces of paper and, I guess, canvas rolls. I generally don't paint on canvases because it's just such a pain to have to store them. I don't have anything like this where I could store all of my canvases, or a wall big enough for a shelving unit like that. Let me know, do you prefer to paint on canvases or other surfaces like paper? Moving to this area, and there are quite a lot of different clays and pottery tools on display. They also had some samples hanging on the wall here, and I'm not entirely sure what these are. It doesn't help that the camera wasn't focusing properly either. I think the brand is S102. I really don't do much in the way of clay, so I don't know for sure. Getting back into familiar art supplies here, there are blending stumps, erasers and sharpeners. This is the Kum range of sharpeners which I was expecting to see. And smaller pencil sets from Cretacolor for the most part here. This is always part of an art shop that I find extremely tempting, all the tiny little things that don't cost as much as the big expensive items. I have a few Cretacolor products and they've been very good. But there's always plenty more of them that I don't have, and this store seems to stock quite a lot of stuff by Cretacolor here. On the shelf opposite are printing inks and tools for printing. Lino and block printing is something I'm also not familiar with. I haven't done any myself, but I'm always really intrigued by all of the supplies, and I really would like to give it a go sometime. I think I have a starter set somewhere in my studio. I really need to pull that out and have a go. It looks like it would be really fun to carve stamps and then print it onto things. Now, one of these days it's on my to-do list, but here are all of the accessories that they have, quite a bit. They also have some scratchboard kits, which I've tried before and they're always really fun. And now I'll be moving over to the other shelf. This area was so super squished and it was extremely difficult to film, which is why everything's kind of on a side view because I couldn't stand far enough back away from things. Their coloured pencil section is perhaps not quite as large as some other stores in Melbourne, but they do have a few items that don't seem to be very common elsewhere, including these really chunky Cretacolor pencils that I took a liking to. And it looks like they have a nice range of colours. I'm moving up to the other end of the shelf here because it's so difficult to film. This is the Derwent side, and Prismacolors too. They have quite a lot of single colours for artist Inktense and watercolour pencils, along with colour softs and metallics down the bottom. I may have skipped past the tins, but there was those as well. Then over here are some different art books, and some pretty notebooks on that Fabriano stand just to the right there. So for a fairly small inner city store, they do have quite a variety of different products. And this is the last little shelf with some Clairefontaine Goldline sketchbooks down the bottom there. I've used those before and they're really good. Along with some pastels, which are mostly in box sets with a few loose ones as well. Looks like they need a restock there. But this is the entire store, and I'd like to thank Arthouse Direct for inviting me to have a wander around. And thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And you might want to subscribe for plenty more videos from me. I'll have some more art store tours popping up for you to check out. Have a great day, and I'll see you all again in my next video. Swatchy later. Bye!